I'm Giannis Angelou, and this is The Business Room, a place where we're talking about business, careers, and entrepreneurship. My next podcast guest is Mr. Glen Allison, a travel photographer and a visual artist. Glen has lived a life that most of us can only dream about. He's a true citizen of the world, he's a visual storyteller and a creative nomad. For 30 years, he's been roaming the world at will with a camera and a backpack, creating very powerful images. His initial training was as an architect in UC Berkeley, California, which led him to a career of 20 years as an architectural photographer in that area of the States, plus taking international assignments that led him to travel in different parts of the world. Then he had a second career as a travel stock photographer, working with the best agency on the planet, which is Getty Images. And then he had a third career, a third phase that is still going on. It is probably most creative than the previous two. Creating art, fine art, images ranging for urban abstractions, to holy men in India, to painted bodies in his studio in Bangkok, to whimsical images created by AI and traditional digital photography techniques. And as if that was not enough, he has written 3 books, the latest of which is called Hidden Powers and is now available on Amazon. The theme of his book is personal transformation, the way and the ability to overcome our problems and what life throws at us, the ability to get up every time we fall down, coupled with many instances, many events from his travels and his life, things he learned from personal experiences as he traveled all over the world and met people of all nationalities and states of life. Glen is a personal friend. I met him on the 2nd of August 1994 in Santorini, and as you understand, this a long career of that magnitude has not been without its ups and downs and peaks and valleys and moments of triumphs and moments of despair. About all this and many more topics, we talk with Glen in what resulted to be a quite long podcast. We also explore the meaning of life, the meaning of creativity, the appreciation of time, what it means to be able to enjoy the moments, smell the roses while we're still creative and productive, the importance of health, the importance of expressing ourselves, the importance of following our dreams and being able to pursue what makes us happy, the difference between relative and absolute happiness, and the meaning of life in general. It's been a very enjoyable talk, a long talk, but I'm sure that you will find great value in it and enjoy it as much as we did. This podcast was filmed in our studio, located at the Hellenic Design Center facilities on 63 Chalkidiki Street in Thessaloniki, Greece. Hellenic Design Center, HDC, advocates and teaches the design thinking methodology, an excellent approach for problem solving in business and organizations. For more information about custom problem-solving approaches and seminars, please contact HDC at the email below.
Every day I might wake up in a different city, in a different hotel. From the pit of bankruptcy, I had no money whatsoever. When the crash happened, I didn't use any wise business sense. If I complained, and I would just dig my hole deeper. I'd been a Buddhist for 20 years. From that, a weak life condition, I wouldn't be motivated to fight as hard. I'm absolutely confident that I could dig my grave. I was asking myself, what was my life all about? Why was I doing this? But that was my ultimate mission in life.
So here we are. Glen, you're more than a photographer. You are a seeker. You're always open to change. You're a builder of meaning and a lifelong explorer of both the outer world and the inner journey, committed to creating maximum life value for everyone you meet, including me. And I'm proud to call you a friend. So, Glen Allison, welcome to Business Room Greece.
Great. It's so good to be back in Greece again. And, of course, to see you my world's best friend. But, you know, in the last 32 years, we've known each other. This is our 8th time to meet up in person.
Is it?
And, you know, maybe 5 or 10 emails a day for the last 25 or 30 years.
Yeah, it's been an amazing journey, full of communication and, you know, yeah. So we have met in Santorini in 1993 during a photo shoot. And then we met again in the States, in Los Angeles.
No, I think we met again in Greece a few years after that.
Oh, yeah. Chronologically speaking, yes, that was the course of things, yes. But I mean, talking about other countries, we've met you invited me in your place in Los Angeles in 2002. And then we met in France, in Indonesia, and Cyprus. It's been a beautiful journey. So yeah. Well, talking about journeys and trips, you've traveled how many countries?
I kind of lost count, but about 110 or so.
110. Okay, this is more than enough to send some people spinning. and your profession, your job, your vocation is a travel photographer.
Well. Technically, you know, I started out as my travels started out, I was a travel photographer, but I really think of myself as like a visual artist because these days I'm not shooting much travel, you know.
But you had a life that most people dream about, and especially if they're working in a company or in a cubicle or they have their own business and their leisure time, let alone vacation time, let alone travel time is limited. And this is bewildering to people. I mean, it has to do also with the way that one earns his or her income. I mean, I remember when we were touring Greece in the summer of 2000, and we were in Crete. And then you were logging into your bank accounts in the US to see your income from Getty and other picture agencies, and you were earning tens of thousands of dollars per month. While at the same time, there were friends of yours that were working in the States that will send you emails asking you when you're going to find a proper job. So what does this say about people? What's up with that? I mean, what?
Well, you know, the way our life unfolds, you know, we structure our everyday life today based on all the causes we made. You know, we met people and fell in love with them and got married and had families and pursued careers. And there's a certain freedom in that, but there's also a certain kind of everyday monotony that can, you know, doing that 2-hour commute every day to the office for 10 years, it's like this can kind of become a bit monotonous. So I think a lot of people, you know, it's human nature to seek an escape from that, you know, so we really magnify the value of that 2-week vacation per year. You know, we spend all year planning for it and dreaming about it and saving up for it and everything. But the routine that we establish in our life seems kind of normal for everybody. So somebody like me comes along and, you know, doesn't have an 8 to 5 and every day might wake up in a different city, in a different hotel and meeting all kinds of people and experiencing cultures and stuff. It sounds kind of amazing, you know, kind of incredible that somebody could live like that, you know. So you mentioned earning a lot of money. Well, not at first. I mean, I started my travel career right from the pit of bankruptcy. You know, I had no money whatsoever, and it took a while to build up that income stream. So it wasn't like I started out with a lot of money and I've always lived this great life. This great life, so to speak, was birthed from all the difficulty
and evolved,
and an evolution that transpired, right? And so early on, I realized that, you know, this bankruptcy, which actually was caused by a downturn you mentioned I was an architectural photographer for 20 years.
When was that?
That was in the 70s and 80s. I have a degree in architecture. So instead of practicing architecture, photography had been a hobby. So for some reason I was drawn to photography, and I thought, okay, I'll just become an architectural photographer because I understood structures and design and that sort of thing. And so I became a photographer. But over the first 2 decades, I built up a very, not without its struggles, of course, but ultimately built up a little mini empire. I had an amazing studio and 5 full-time employees. And, in the last couple of years before the bankruptcy, I made $1 million. And so I had could spend money any way I wanted, kind of, well, within limits. And then this bankruptcy was triggered by a crash in the California real estate segment. And all of a sudden, my huge jobs were just dried up overnight. And, I was always an artiste. I was never a business person, so there were no YouTube videos about entrepreneurship and stuff like that. So I really wasn't focused on, investing money and saving money. Not that I didn't save and put some money in some simple blue chip stocks and stuff like that. But when the crash happened, I didn't use any wise business sense. I didn't lay everybody off. I kept them on staff at full salary. And before I knew it, my significant, $250,000 savings just was depleting month by month by month. Eventually, I couldn't pay the mortgage on the house and everything. So, I had to declare bankruptcy. So it was from that point of having lost everything. My house, my amazing furniture. I'd curated this modern museum of art furniture, and I had this amazing kind of lifestyle going on, a hillside house overlooking Los Angeles and everything. And so all of a sudden that was gone. I was left with my van, actually living in my van, and literally got to a point where I had no money. And which was kind of shocking to me, but, we'll probably talk about this a bit later, but I'd been a Buddhist for 20 years. And so I had learned a lot of things, like we can transform suffering into benefit. And so I had this 20-year foundation of focused on not being consumed by, the difficulty. And it wasn't just an intellectual understanding. It was, the practice I was doing enabled me to entrench this in my core. So when the bankruptcy came, of course I didn't like it. I'd lost everything and all the money I could, I used to treat my staff to lobster lunches and stuff. I couldn't do that anymore. But I knew that if I complained, and I would just dig my hole deeper, right? Because somehow I had made, even though the bankruptcy was triggered by something seemingly outside of my control, an economic decline in the industry, I hadn't prepared myself. I hadn't stashed money. I'd spent it too frivolously. I'd kind of developed an invulnerability that's easy to do when the money's just gushing in, And so I realized that the fact that I actually had to go into bankruptcy wasn't caused by the downturn in the economy. It was caused by the lack of preparation in my life. I hadn't bought gold and all the kinds of things that would give me security. So I took full responsibility. I'd learned that from all the Buddhist insights I'd gained, and that complaining about my situation in life was only going to make it worse because, we make causes. Complaining is kind of a negative cause. I'd just dig that pit deeper. So at any rate, I, had a pretty healthy kind of attitude about all that. And, I decided if I got to deliver pizzas.
Yeah, but there were practical problems, like daily survival and heat and food and clothing and everything. So how did you overcome that? I'm guessing that this kind of volatility in one's life and one's income would send people begging for work or drag them to the doctor's office for antidepressants. So many people would have very different reactions to this kind of turmoil.
Well, first of all, I wasn't depressed. I knew exactly why I wound up where I was. And though I didn't know exactly what the kind of cause I needed to do to dig my way out, I was absolutely confident that I could dig my way out and that I wasn't going to make my situation worse by just bemoaning my fate in life, right? So, as I mentioned, I got a pizza delivery job. So I had a little bit of income coming in and I could eat free pizzas, after work and stuff like that. And I was living in my van. And the other thing the way bankruptcies worked in California is you filed bankruptcy, but it took 9 months for it to go into effect.
9 months?
9 months.
Okay.
So there's like a limbo period there. You can't discard your possessions because they're part of the bankruptcy program, but they actually don't take them away from you.
You mean you can sell them?
No, you cannot. You can't sell them. I mean, you've already filed for bankruptcy, so they're part of the assets of the bankruptcy.
Can you use them?
Well, you could still live in it for this 9 months.
Can you rent them?
Yeah, that's exactly what I did.
Okay.
So I thought, okay, if I had this amazing house, and of course, money is the value of money is very different today than it was 30 years ago.
That's all right.
But I figured if I could bring in a couple of $1,000 a month, I could kind of keep my life going. But I couldn't find a renter. It's like a lot of people were affected by this thing. So it actually took some time. I had to go through this pizza delivery. Actually, it wasn't very long, but it was about 3 months or so before I found a renter, and for my place. And but I think in retrospect, had I found a renter immediately, I wouldn't have really absorbed the lessons so deeply. So by living in that van and having a lot of time to ponder at night as the rain hit the metal roof of the van, and really ponder my life deeply and how I got there, and to build my determination of how I was going to get out, and how I was going to. I realized I had to practice what I preach, about all these Buddhist insights I felt so great about. I had to really prove that I could live them now. So had I rented my place out quickly, I wouldn't have dug deep enough to really get to the core.
Okay, I hear you, but this cinematic image with the sound effects of rain and everything, and you're living in your van, sounds like putting some salt in the wound in order to get your pain intensify and then make the best out of it. Push your mind to be able to overcome the adversity and realize, take a responsibility, become aware, and then overcome it. But it sounds painful, though.
Well, it could have been, but you have to realize I wasn't coming from a low life condition. I was coming from no money condition, but I wasn't coming from a low life condition.
What's the difference?
Well, there's two kinds of happiness: relative happiness and absolute happiness.
Okay.
So relative happiness is a function of things relative to you. In my case, I had a lot of money, had the great house, had all this staff, had amazing assignments, and some of them of which were taking me around the world. I was getting published all over the world. And so, if my happiness was just based on relative, there's only one constant in life, and that's that everything changes, right? So if my level of happiness was based on those relative things, then, inevitably things change. Our loved ones might leave us or die, or, these kinds of things happen in life. Economic downturns happen and wipe out your income and so on and so forth. So it's natural, that we want comfortable lifestyle. We want the security of having good income and a happy family and all these kinds of things. But in reality, that's kind of a relative. It's our happiness is relative to the success of all those areas, right? So there's a different kind of happiness that isn't a function of the relative things in your life. It's a happiness, this condition of absolute happiness. It's not a state of mind. It's not something you can conjure up in your mind. It's a condition of life that has to be forged from the core. And actually, you can't forge it without some difficulty in your life. The difficulty gives you the opportunity to forge this kind of absolute condition of happiness, so that it's not a function of whether or not you have anything.
Is it a decision or a leap of faith?
It's not a leap of faith. It's a decision to pursue that path of elevating yourself. So this is a conscious decision that we can make, that no matter how difficult it gets. I know it's easy to say that, but it's it's difficult to live it, right?
Okay.
But again, I had this foundation of Buddhist theory and insight and wisdom and a practice that went with it, which helped me well up a stronger life condition when my life condition was, low or sad or whatever. And so when the bankruptcy occurred, I'd been doing this for 20 years. So I'd gotten pretty good at it. This was like the real test. I mean, if this is, it was important for me to prove to myself, and by extension, to show an example to others who are maybe in the middle of struggle too, that it wasn't just a state of mind, that it was a state of life. So not that this is, I'd attained the maximum enlightenment or anything. I mean, this is a process. But at that point in the progression, I had a pretty good, solid foundation of understanding, not in my mind, but in my life, that all these relative things that I lost didn't determine whether or not I was happy. So, when I had all this money and was so busy, and you can imagine all these assignments, I had no time to meditate or think, that sort of thing. So all of a sudden now I'm in this van sleeping, it starts to rain. And for the first time, I could hear the raindrops, like smelling the roses,
Yeah,
right?
I hear you.
And so it wasn't like this cinematic, thing, it's like I really lay there in my van and wow, I loved hearing that rain, because I knew my being able to rise from this was not a function of whether or not I was stuck in this pit temporarily, I knew it was just temporary. And so, with all this insights and things that I'd studied about, I realized that there are lessons that I can learn from having my face flat on the ground. I couldn't learn those lessons from a book. I couldn't learn those lessons when my life was full of abundance. It was only when all that relative stuff was completely removed,
Right.
that I was at rock bottom, that I could really, make a determination. Okay, now I'm going to rise from this low point. I'm going to somehow, I don't know how, but I'm determined. I'm going to well up a determination that just is unshakable, that I'm going to move forward from this. And that's going to give me not only personal great fulfillment to see myself rising from that, but it would inspire others who might want to be looking along and seeing. I had lots of friends who were aware of what's going on. Many of my Buddhist friends also, they knew I'd been practicing, that philosophy for 20 years. And so they were eager to see how I handled this. So it wasn't just for me, it was for others as well.